Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. The topic is going to be burnout, and it's now a little bit past 11 Central European time, so we are kicking it off. With me, I have my colleague Regina and Pascal, and they are going to walk you through the hot topic of burnout today. Before we start, I just want to mention that this is a recording, so if you miss some parts of it or have somebody you would like to share the presentation with, that's going to be very doable after this session today. You can use the chat to interact with us throughout the webinar, but for all your questions, please put them in the Q&A. You find them below on the bar if you click on your screen, and we're going to save some time in the end of the webinar to answer all your questions. So anything regarding burnout that you need support on or tips and tricks on, please ask them to Regina and Pascal whenever you find time for that. I'm going to give over the spotlight now to Regina first, and then Pascal to present themselves, and then we go on with the topic.
Hi, so I'm Regina, and I'm based here in South Africa in the Johannesburg area. I'm an agile trainer and an agile coach, and I come from corporate. Before I became an agile coach many years ago, I come from corporate. So the topic of burnout is very topical now, but it's also quite close to my heart because I have witnessed in the past the effects of burnout in a lot of my colleagues in corporate. So that's me.
Hi, and I'm located in Finland, so in the far north. It's getting winter here, as it's getting warm for Regina. But yeah, I'm also working in Agile 42 as a coach. I'm focusing more on coaching, not so much training, and I'm also a professional coach with ICF. So yeah, and our contact details you can find on this slide. Feel free to drop us an email or get in touch with us on LinkedIn later on. Yes, so time to start, right?
Yep. So why this topic? And we thought this would be a great topic for a webinar at this time of the year, especially at this time of the year, because people are tired and maybe some people are on the edges of burning out because of the work of the year, and psychologically we are starting to think about our Christmas vacation, those of us who celebrate Christmas, but even coming to the end of the year, there is almost like a psychological thing going on with regards to where we are with our work, which means that there's a last push to get work delivered before the year ends. A lot of the clients that I'm working with right now have got a final release of software before the 15th of December, because there's a freeze between the 15th of December and the 15th of January. And these releases are high-risk releases. Some of them are quite big, and there's a last push to get work in before that code freeze and before everybody goes on a break. So it's quite topical for this time of year because it's when things start actually showing up and manifesting, and you can observe it in yourself maybe, and you can also observe it in other people. So it's really hopefully it's a great topic for us to finish our series of webinars for this year. So now I'm handing over to Pascal to tell us what is burnout.
So burnout is a syndrome that is resulting from chronic and work-related stress. There are different symptoms. The biggest one is exhaustion. People get tired, don't feel connected to the work. They have a mental distance to that. They might become in that way also cynical, related to things happening at work. If they're exhausted, they might not have the right connection and the right things to people. Lack of sleep is a result of that. So if people sleep very little because they're still processing the things, it's stress related to the work environment and to the things we have there. Yes, and how to get further on this, it would be good to discuss about a few stories. So I could share a story, so that we can relate and perhaps also connect to it later on. So I've heard from a person who was working in an organization. It was a rather big organization, and I've been discussing with that person a bit further in detail the situation. So there was a reorganization, and he got a new manager, and the chemistry with the new manager did not work very well. That person kind of had not good communication with the manager, and the manager publicly commented badly about that person. The manager criticized the person, turned down initiatives the person had. So the person then ended up, okay, it's a work, I'm getting paid, I'll do what the manager asks. So all this, his self-drive stopped being active on things. And yeah, then they even, as a next phase of the reorganization, he was part of a team. They rearranged the people in the location where they would be sitting, and the team ended up being in a new workspace, in a new room. But yeah, the problem was there was too little space for everybody to sit there. So that person ended up sitting somewhere else, totally different, with other people, a few other people, but fairly alone, that were not connected to his work. And he had to walk the corridor all the time, and he would miss all the room discussions and so on. And at the end, the person, as time after time, felt like very stressed on this, and tried to do his best, but he could not have a feeling of succeeding. So he also kept on thinking of those things in the evening, and having lots of sleep shortage. So he would not sleep in the evenings. What happened at the end? It was so that he decided to apply for a new job outside that organization. And then, after he had a promising outlook for getting a new job, then he even was more self-confident, and then was able to manage still the time before he left the company. I don't know. Regina, do you have a story? Perhaps you can also share some story of yours.
Yeah, I do. It's actually, it happened in one of the corporates that I worked for. And it was when I first realized that burnout isn't just about working too hard and being tired. There are other reasons why people would burn out. And this is a story of a very successful solutions architect who had a lot of influence in the organization. He was very well liked and exceptionally successful. And what corporates do when you get experts that are very successful, they promote them to leadership positions, which is what happened with this person. And then when this person was in leadership position, the organization did not give him the support that he needed. And because he was new to this leadership role, he had to prove himself all over again. He was managing people for the first time. He was managing stakeholder expectations. This was a very large organization with different locations around the world. So managing all of that. And because it was the first time he was in a leadership position without the support of his leaders and the rest of the organization, he lacked the skills of delegating, for example, which is something that needs to happen. You need to delegate if you cannot do everything. It's part of empowering your team as well. So he just continued to doing everything that he was doing when he was just doing the solutions architecture, plus all the additional responsibilities. He couldn't say no. He just couldn't say no. He felt like he couldn't say no because he was proving himself in this new position. And I started observing him becoming a lot more distant. He started closing in on himself. And then you could see his face. He had rings under his eyes, and I could see there was something going on for him. And eventually and it was about 6 months of this kind of situation. And he all of a sudden he was no longer around. And then we were notified that he was taking 3 months off. He was taking off a 3-month sabbatical. I gave him his space. We were friendly, but I gave him the space that he needed. And when he came back to work, I then realized, he told me what was going on for him. And the other thing which also happened is he then all of a sudden was no longer the leader of the architects, but he became a solutions architect once again. And I asked him, but geez, you had this like wonderful opportunity. Of course, this is before I understood what really went on for him. And he said, but you know what, Regina, it just wasn't worth it. I am the best architect that I can be. I'm an expert architect, and this is where I want to be. This is where I'm most happy. This is where I don't have the stress of being a leader. And quite frankly, I'm quite happy doing this. I don't need to be a leader or a manager of people in order to achieve the goals, my life goals and my career goals. And for me, that is huge eye-opener. I realized for the first time, I thought, because I was like thinking, oh, you just need to go up in the organization, you need to get promoted all the time. And I realized, yeah, it's not about that. It's about being comfortable and happy in yourself and thinking of yourself first, thinking of your health and wellness. Because if you're healthy and you are well, then your family is also healthy and well, because if you burn out, it's not just doesn't just affect you, it affects your family system, it affects your friends, it affects everything in your life. And that was a big eye-opener for me, and I became a lot more conscious and aware of the whole topic of burnout from that point on. All right, so that's our stories, and I think Pascal is going to take us through a scarf. Yeah.
So stories, you've heard 2 different stories, and each story and each case will be different. So the thing is that people are different, and everybody would react on a situation totally different. So on that aspect, we need to also accept that people might have different needs and different things. So one model that helps us understand better how people behave or what are their needs is the SCARF model by David Rock. And SCARF stands for status, so certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And I will explain perhaps on the first example how that was not present, or how that seeing those aspects, the person was not happy on this. So on the that example that I mentioned, the person on regards to status, he was being publicly turned down and humiliated by the manager. So in that way, he was not recognized by the manager. And then he felt definitely that, the recognition was missing. In terms of certainty, he was kind of not sure what would come next, or how the work would happen, how the manager would behave. So certainty was missing on that aspect. Many of his own initiatives were like turned down. No, we don't do that. And they were not giving like the opportunity for him to make decisions on his own. He was kind of micromanaged. So that was the thing, that autonomy also was very low for him. And perhaps the fact that he was even put in a different room, like located outside the team where he was like taken out of that, then the relatedness went also down. He was not able to be part of the team's daily discussions, etc. And actually, I did not mention before, also in Furnace, there was some other person in the team that could like talk very rude to the manager, but the manager would accept that, and he felt that that was a different type of behavior by the manager towards the person. So those are facts that we can see that if they are not like on the right level, then the person can be on having a stressful situation. And of course, some people might need more status, others might need less status. In the example of Regina, the person probably didn't need the status to be superior, but more the status of being a technical expert. So that's what I meant by people being different. Another thing that might cause stress is the lack of motivation. And if you know, many people think about motivation by the book Drive from Daniel Pink, that is Autonomy, Mastery, and Purpose. But there are also other things that affect motivation. There might be the rhythm. So how much you succeed, the feeling of success, and that you have a regular feeling of succeeding, a certain safety, that you feel safe for who you are and what you say and how you behave. And then also the contribution of doing something good. That's also important for many people. So those things need to be in place in order to avoid stressful situation. And then I think as the next thing, Regina will tell us some more signs of what is how to recognize that we are going into a stressful situation at work.
Yeah, thank you. So it's seeing the signs in yourself and also seeing the signs in other people. And quite often it is harder to see the signs in yourself and easier to see the signs in other people. Seeing the signs in yourself requires some self-awareness, awareness of yourself. Perhaps you are doing some journaling, which helps you have that awareness. And the thing with burnout, in my experience, and I can speak from a personal experience, is that burnout, it creeps up on you very slowly over a period of time. And then one day you realize that, oh, this is what's been happening, because perhaps you have felt tired all the time. You are not sleeping well. Maybe your appetite is different. Perhaps you are losing your temper with your family. Even small things will make you blow up. Perhaps you're finding yourself more defensive. And unless you have that awareness of self, you're not going to know that is what is happening for you. So it creeps up on you. So just be aware of that. And it's important for you to take care of yourself. But before we get there, so some of the signs that might tell you that you or other people are reaching that point. For example, when people are busy all the time, their calendars are busy, they are double, triple, quadruple booked at a particular time for a particular time period, and they can't get to all the meetings. Of course, you can't divide yourself into four or clone yourself and attend all 4 meetings at the same time. It's been so busy during the day that somebody gets to the end of the day and they feel like, well, I haven't done anything. Now I need to do my work. And then they start their work, which takes them quite late into the night. when people say, I am busy, I am busy, I am busy, yes, they can just be busy. If it's a pattern, then perhaps they are reaching that point where they are so busy that they are unable to realize that they're reaching the edge of exhaustion, for example. Things like sprint goals and product goals. So I'm referring to Scrum, but let's talk about outcomes. Having those goals, it's very important to ensure that people, your team members, yourself, you're not just running around being busy, rather that you and your teams are working towards a goal. It's a way of mitigating the risk of the curse of busyness, because you can be busy and not achieve anything. However, you can be working together as a team, reaching some goals and some outcomes. So having your goals is very important. Sprint goals and product goals are something you would have in your work, in your team, but from a personal perspective, you have your own personal goals. What is your reason for doing this job, your reason for being and doing what it is you need to do to achieve your goals? So keeping your goals front of mind allows you to focus on what's important rather than running around just being busy. So that is one of the signs. Another sign is where there's a lot of firefighting, and in a work situation is when the teams are being reactive all the time, maybe because there is a lot of technical debt, maybe because there's a lot of production issues, maybe because there's a lot of unexpected work, which creates that uncertainty in the working environment. You sometimes hear people, oh, we're just fighting fires. They are in a chaotic state all the time. And being in a chaotic state is not sustainable at all. Eventually something is going to break. And it's being aware of when are we constantly chaotic, so we are constantly fighting fires, and what do we need to do in order to get out of that? Quite often, organizations that have a culture of blame, a culture of covering themselves so that they don't get the blame for something, or organizations that normally are fighting a lot of fires. And I coached at an organization where they were fighting so many fires, the teams were not able to work on new work, on value-adding features. They were just fighting fires all the time. And what happened is that in the period of 3 months, they lost about 15 people. They resigned and they left to go to other organizations. So those are some of the consequences of firefighting, which can lead to burnout. People just have enough, and in order to protect themselves, they leave. Those that stay behind start reaching those edges of exhaustion and burnout that I mentioned before. The other thing is be aware in yourself, but also in other people. It's a third sign, is when people are either always late to meetings, or they are always leaving early, or they are calling in sick. Even in a virtual world, people call in sick. They're sick and they can't arrive for work. And I come from a project manager background before I became a Scrum Master and an Agile coach. And whenever people were sick, often, when it became a pattern, for me, that was a sign that something was not 100%. Right, which then, led me to try to engage and relate with them to find out if they were okay and if they were really, what was going on for them. So just be aware of these signs. As I mentioned before, sometimes people arrive late because there's a reason. Sometimes leave early because they leave early. Sometimes people are sick, and sometimes These are signs that people are reaching that edge of burnout or are already burnt out. And things like working overtime is something that can lead to this. People will eventually leave. Organizations lose important skills and knowledge, and as people leave to go to a much better place. So these are just some of the signs that you can actually watch out for. So the first one is people are always busy. The second one is lots of firefighting and reactive work. And the third thing is look for patterns in attendance, not because you want to micromanage people, but if you are a servant leader, you are looking out for the health and well-being of your teams. So those are some of the things about seeing the signs. And I alluded a little bit to the role of a coach. And those of you who are agile coaches, and if you think about it, a Scrum Master is also a coach, and leaders are coaches as well. So the role of a coach in whichever position you are in is, firstly, the coach, you work with the system. You know what's going on with the system, and you watch out for the things that are happening in the organization. Oh, sorry about that. It's my perimeter beams and it's the wind. Okay, so you know what's going on in the organization, and quite often the organizations give out signs which lead to you starting to understand how people are in the organization. The first thing I need to mention, though, around the role of a coach is that a coach is not a therapist. So you're not a psychologist, you're not a psychiatrist, you're not a therapist, right? So you need to know when it is a real problem for the person, a physical problem, a medical problem, a psychological problem, and refer them to the right therapist. For example, if your organization has wellness programs, you can refer them to the wellness program, or you mentioned that you are not a therapist. So know the boundaries of what you are able to do in terms of helping individuals with burnout issues. So what can you do as a coach? When working with the system, you are observing, as I mentioned before. Look out for those signs, observe people. Coaches love and are inspired and energized by people. So observe people. Do some reflection, reflect by looking for the patterns and reflecting on that. If there are anti-patterns in the organization that could be causing some dysfunctions in the teams around burnout, start challenging leaders and start challenging those things in the organization that might be the root cause of burnout or people reaching exhaustion. Ask questions, ask those very powerful questions with curiosity, and listen. Quite often, people just need to be listened to. Your team just needs to be listened to. If they are working with a very, very tough release, for example, and they are working overtime, be there, listen to them, and help where you can within the boundaries of your role as a coach. So connect with individuals, connect with the team. Don't give advice, of course. In this situation, advising is a coaching stance. In this situation is don't advise, just stay in your coaching stance and connect with them, listen to them. And if there's anything at all that can be changed or experimented with or improved, help your team create those safe to fail experiments around. And of course, this has got to do with things like process and the way the teams are working, the way the teams are collaborating. Perhaps you can even start influencing the release process prioritization, ensuring the teams are not taking on more work than what their capacity allows, and connect with them and help them feel safe enough that they know that it is okay to fail, because it is all part of the human condition. So those are some of the things in terms of what you as in your role as a coach can do. And now Pascal will take us through the role of leadership. Over to you, Pascal.
Thank you. So on aspect of leadership, the leaders are quite important in the organization because they set the long-term goals, and they are quite a lot influencing on what is seen as important to be achieved in the company, what is seen to as important, what needs to be done, setting the targets. And the expectations by the leaders would affect what is seen as effective and efficient inside the organization. And leaders also this way can generate the influence a lot the culture and the values that the organization has. So if we know from this that leaders, if we have good leaders, we are feeling more happy in the work environment. I guess many of you have experienced when you were working with a good leader person, you'll be more committed and had more positive energy. And if you had a bad leader who was micromanaging and you had having a bad time with that person, then you were like more stressed and less happy in the organization. So a leader is kind of a good leader would help creating a network of people, empowering the people, helping the people, having initiatives, creating a safe environment where they can like really utilize their energy. So a leader, kind of a good leader, would create good conditions for the person to be useful and valuable in the organization, and would like recognize that. We have the terminology of a servant leader that came from Greenleaf. Sorry, he pointed out there that good leaders are leaders that also have certain skills, and one of the skill is like a leader is having a healing aspect. So if a leader is really good, then a person who has a problem can come and talk to the leader. And if the problem is something more like even human related, he can also share that with a leader, and the leader would like create the environment and have a healing aspect. Another thing that is important, leaders support the organization, also servant leaders to create kind of a community feeling, and in that way people can also find connections to other people inside the organization. So they cultivate a we feeling inside the organization that then helps the relatedness. Further on, I would like to give an example that's very actual nowadays. On the left, you see the email that a certain person sent to his employees, and sending like, you know, you need to work very long days. You see overtime because we need to succeed, and then giving them an ultimatum like by tomorrow 5 o'clock you need to decide if you're in or if you're out, and if you're out then you will lose your job. So in that example you see this person, there is not the safety anymore, there is not like, you know, the people are shaken up, and they need to all ways of working are not accepted anymore. And it's okay to shake up the people, but still having this kind of unsafety of what would come next, and having not more of a reasoning than just an email, that's a bit strange in the way of communicating. On the right, there is an example of a person who has been criticizing some of the leaders' suggestions from the technical perspective, and then the leader responded that he reacted in a way that first he took over the proposals the person had, but then on the other hand, because that criticism was done publicly, then that person was at the end fired, and he was even like brave on saying fired. That person also had many situations where like people be prepared at any time to give a demonstration when I walk around in the organization, so that having like lots of those different impulsive messages to the employees, where the employees did not know what would be coming from one day to the other. Okay, we mentioned that being part of a team is important, because then in a team you hopefully have a good and safe space to communicate, and you feel belonging to some group of people. So teams and communities are important, because if we say even outside your team, you might have a community of practice or some other network where you can like talk and share the situations that you might have and the challenges you might have with people at work. So that would help in the way that you could get ideas, and you could like have as a releasing the pressure that you might be feeling outside. What's important, of course, for teams, we always know that the teams, there are dysfunctional teams and there are good teams. So hopefully the team is getting more to be collaborating and functional. And one thing very important is the psychological safety. And for that, we can see it on the Timothy Clark has in his book written about psychological safety. There are 4 elements, like first being part of belonging to a team, then being part of asking questions is a bit like higher on the level of psychological safety, being able to bring on your own ideas. So that would be making suggestions and having this kind of autonomy, and even being able to challenge ideas by other people. It's okay to like be to disagree, but then in more constructive way. So and also it might be okay in an environment with psychological safety to share your own feelings and sharing all your own challenges and everything that you can talk about, whatever comes up. So that's why also like teams and communities and the network that you might have is good to be able to process things and challenges and not let the things exaggerate too much. Okay, I think that's more or less what we have had as idea of sharing with you our thoughts and reflection that Regina and me have been doing now the last 2 weeks on the topic and what we've come up with. So as we said, we are both coaches and we are not the experts, but now we would like to take your questions.
Thank you very much, guys, for your presentation. There has actually been quite good thoughts and comments in the chat throughout your presentation, people agreeing with you and adding on what you have been talking about. So a big thanks to everyone being active there. We actually have one question at the moment that we could take now. So this is going to both Regina and Pascal. In your opinion, is the burnout phenomenon more related to like bad relations with managers and maybe your boss, or is it more related to work environment, like colleagues and overload of work and for development expectations, etc.?
It can be both. Like it depends. Not any case is the same as the previous, but then also environment, because burnout is clearly seen as the stress that you have at the workplace. So I would see environment, the working environment is one thing that can cause stress. And of course, in many situations, you might have challenges in your private life that causes you having more stress in the work environment. But clinically, or the medical people refer the stress caused by things outside the work environment. They don't see them as related to being stress on the burnout. But it's hard to separate. But yeah, we see the things that affect on the work environment for the burnout.
Yeah, I echo that. It is different for people, and which I really like, the David scarf, the scarf model that Pascal presented, because that can be used as a I'll use the word model, which is not the perfect word, not only for work related, but also you as an individual in your whole life. So and think about that with regards to for you, and also for your people, status, certainty, and with yourself, it comes with you knowing yourself. For example, some of it can be related to, for example, if your manager is picking on you, they're bad managers, notwithstanding that they may have problems of their own, the impact that it's having on you and the rest of your team could affect different team members in a different way. It might affect your status, because that's how you might have some triggers with regards to that, whereas the person sitting next to you might be triggered on the fairness scale. So it is very different, which makes this quite a nice, the scarf model, quite a nice way of framing your question as well.
Thank you. Let's pick another question from the audience. Do you have any help in regards to burnout in a home office environment?
I'd like to start off with that, and I personally do, because I'd like to use my own personal experience this year especially. So in a home office, yes, in a home office, typically people are isolated. For example, I'm isolated, my husband goes out to work, and then my husband comes home. And what has really helped me since I've been working mostly from home is having the rituals. I call them rituals for resilience. It's the habits that I've cultivated over the last 2 years. So for example, I've got the ritual over coffee. I've got a coffee station, and for me, taking that break every hour to go get coffee, for me, it's a ritual that gets me out of my office. I'm lucky that I have a garden. So at lunchtime, if it's not raining, I go and put my feet on the grass in summer without any shoes on, which is also a nice thing. And there's so many, I can really talk forever about this. The other thing is music. For me, it works. And I've got various playlists on Apple Music, and I have a playlist called Happy Songs. And that music goes on, and sometimes I'm here, I'm working, even if I'm training, because the music is playing in the lounge and it's in the background, and that helps me get out of my head. So yeah.
Do you want to add something, Pascal?
Yes, home office is, of course, you don't have the same kind of connection with people, and you don't have the same kind of spontaneous situations, and then you might have different disturbances. And I've seen also that challenges at home office might be that separating work and private is not so structured and not so clear as before. Like, my kids come from school to home, and then they have a question that might open the door, and they might, oh, can you help me on this? It's really short. So then I have to switch over to something different. Yeah, it would be good to connect more and find ways to connect more with the colleagues in the work environment. And perhaps if you see that, you know, the days get longer and so on, then say that I turn on the computer at a certain time and then don't work and don't repeat personal work emails, but only personal things on my mobile phone and so on.
Yeah, it's those boundaries. I want to just add something, which is, as I've been reading the comments through in the chat, is this year I started doing in-person training, and people, even though they can join a virtual class a lot sooner, they will wait for, and this is here in South Africa, of course, because this is where I train, and people come to my in-person trainings because they are like hungry to work and see and relate with other people. And they say, Regina, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to get out of my house. I'm so glad to be talking to people. And they come, and they've been battling with mental health issues during the pandemic and still working from home, going into the office maybe once a week. And they come to my training, and for them, it's more than just the learning. It's about, okay, this is helping me a great deal. It's relating with other people, connecting with other people in a training situation.
Thank you. Do you also then find it difficult when you mentioned the role of the coach and the leadership to observe and listen and see how people are doing? Is it more difficult doing that than remotely and finding out that people actually are burned out at home when in a digital?
I mean, what would you then be able to recognize? I give you an example. If you have people, sometimes people are like this. So now I'm talking, but you don't see my mimic and anything. So that is an extra challenge of not being able to see the body language. And the pictures tells more than 1,000 words. So you can have like person telling the information in a proper way, but then his body language gives you totally different signals. So, and that's something that we cannot have as coaches the same way when working with the people. And overall, you know, everybody who collaborates with other people, and the connection is totally different. And then we might have technical challenges of internet connections being weak or other things that we are also like dependent on the infrastructure. Yeah. So in the past, I had like my biggest breakthroughs were actually in the workshops when I was giving during the coffee breaks. And those coffee breaks are like the time which I don't have. If I'm virtual, I will have my own coffee normally here. You know, if I see somebody was a bit strange, I see he's going to pick up a coffee, then I also went to pick up a coffee so that I can have a safe environment, which seems a bit spontaneously, and then ask the right question. So what's going on with you today? Okay, that's the thing. Then I can like adjust the rest of the workshops accordingly.
Yeah. One thing that I notice is that virtually it is a lot harder, for me at least, because it is easy to become distracted with other things. There's 2 screens or 3 screens or whatever the case is, and there's, you know, email and this and that. And when people are in training, they're not listening to me. You know, they are actually, you know, I can actually see by where their eyes are that they are typing, and they're not supposed to be typing because I'm teaching. So the challenge, it just is, it's harder as a trainer to get people engaged. So of course, you know, I build in a lot more exercises, a lot more breakout rooms. You know, the smaller the group, the better it is. And it's just, I call it a lot more heavy lifting than in-person training, for example. Yeah.
But then there might be a case when somebody might see the signs of somebody being burned out, but the person doesn't see it, him or herself. How would you then, as a coach, maybe approach this? How can you help someone, or maybe ask somebody, are you okay, and have you thought of this, or might you be burnout? Or I don't know, maybe you don't use the word burnout immediately, but how can you kind of take this to the next level with the person you're concerned of being?
Yeah. First of all, if you see a difference in a person, you need to know the person before, how he is normally, and then recognize the difference. And often when I see differences in people's behavior, I normally don't immediately think myself as a burnout, but then I had like, remember now a concrete case where I said, hey, how's it going with you? You are now a bit more tense and more stressed, and you're not like, I see you have the door always closed, and you always work in that corner before your door was open. So you see a difference in behavior, and you can reflect the facts and ask and find out more information, and perhaps in that way, as Regina mentioned, it's observing and then asking questions, active listening, challenging, reflecting, helping the person reflect and create awareness.
And then I'm thinking in some cultures, or not only company cultures, but like personal cultures, it might also be a sign of weakness to kind of see a therapist or something like this. How can you make people want to do this for their own benefit instead of having it show as a weakness?
I mean, you can see the signs of stress accumulating, and burnout would be if that is like a chronically. Sometimes people are stressful, and some even call positive stress because they get energy. Oh, it's before the deadline and we have all those things to do, and we are achieving and we are succeeding and it's great. There might be those situations also. But if it's like prolonged stressful situation, then you could like help them reflect and support them. If it gets really bad that the person is sick and has too little sleep and those things, then it has gone beyond our level. And that's of course difficult to recognize. But if the person needs medication for being able to handle the situation or time off, then I think it would be a good time to, tell him, perhaps you see somebody more professional, because we are not supposed to give out medicine and prescribe things.
I would like to add to that. So the power of stories is an important tool that coaches and leaders have. And if you're observing someone, and of course you're observing behavior, you're hearing how people are speaking, and you're reflecting that back, you can, what I do a lot of, maybe a little bit too much, is I share stories from my experience. Like this happened to me, this is, and it's not what I did with it, it's just like, this is what I'm going through, and tell stories and tell my stories, which means that you need to be comfortable being vulnerable with your people, with your team. And that's important, that vulnerability, sharing your stories, because in stories, people are going to pick up what they need. And some of those things, you're able to assist as a coach or a leader. And if you can't, then, you might suggest they see a different professional. And the vulnerability is going as far as saying, well, a few years ago, I was really, really battling, and I went to see a psychologist. And I had 6 sessions psychologist, and it just helped me focus and see the world in a different way. So sharing your stories, and that's a little bit of leading by example, like role modeling, that vulnerability and sharing those stories. So when you're already thinking, so what can I do? I don't know what to do. Is maybe talk about your experiences, share your stories, and then see if people can pick up from that.
Thanks. Then there's another question. In your experience, do you see that lack of personal purpose is a big contributor to burnout in work environments, and how do you handle that?
So I see lack of personal purpose not only causes a burnout, but causing mental health issues. So it's bigger than burnout. It's a mental, people without that lack of purpose for themselves, they are in the wind. It's like being a yacht in a very stormy sea, and you have lost your rudder. all right, to guide yourself. So yes, having that personal purpose is important. And again, as a coach, you can help. You can share your own stories, and making sure that teams have team goals, for example, might start creating an awareness that, oh, hang on, goals aren't just for like work. I need my own personal goals, right? So yeah.
How can you then support somebody? I mean, burnout recovery can be quite a long time. You mentioned, Regina, in your example, your guy was away for 3 months, but it can also be even longer, I guess. So how can you then support a person coming back from recovery to not fall into the same path again? Is there something you can do, like workload or scheduling stuff, or any tips or tricks on that?
I'll give you what has worked for me is don't treat them any differently how you would treat other team members, right? They're not broken. So welcome them back and let them know you're here if you need them, if they need you, but don't treat them differently. Don't give them less work. Don't say, oh no, you were sick. No, don't. Because they are probably in a situation where they will know what their limitations are, and then don't force them to talk about it. They will, if they want to, if they feel safe enough to do. All you can do is create that safety for the team to talk about any issues. And if the person feels they want to talk about it, then let them do it, and don't like have a huddle and say, okay, we're going to talk about this. They come back, business as usual, and let them know I'm here. Yeah.
You want to add something, Pascal?
I don't know. I don't have a personal experience of people coming back, and I have not experienced it in this way. I know from cases that were outside my environment. So just trying to work normal and create a good environment so that they can talk and share things if they want to, is good. Of course, a general rule of thumb is, avoid overburden, as we have in principle from Lean. Overall, don't try to make things in a way that there is not long working days, but that would be something I would try to do for everybody, not only for.
Thanks. So there's still one question maybe we can take before we close. So do you have any tracks on how many people you guys might have helped during your career with burnout, and how did they go all the way to recovery and sick leave, or did you kind of see something in early stages that you were able to kind of turn around, not become burnout?
So I don't keep track of a numbers, I help this person, etc. I can give, we don't have time for, but I have been involved with a few examples. And in the one example, it was causing problems in the team. There was even some underlying conflict, and I was worried about violence in the team because of the way this person was acting out. And at the time, I was not a coach. I was his line manager, so that's how I tried to be a servant leader, and I think that. Because I referred him out, the issue that he shared with me was insomnia. He was chronic, he wasn't sleeping, and because he wasn't sleeping, he was behaving in a different way in the team. Of course, the reasons why he wasn't sleeping I didn't go into. It was between him and his psychologist, I referred him to our wellness program, which we had in the organization, and then he didn't have to take time off or anything like that. He said, "I'm okay, Regina." And eventually over time his behavior started changing. He didn't have dark rings under his eyes anymore. I like to think that was a bit of a good story.
Yeah. I think it's hard to say. You're not keeping book of statistics, and because this is such an intangible thing of you cannot say, is he going to be a risk of being a burnout? But you can say, I have the feeling and I sense this person is in a stressful situation. If that would lead, I don't know. But what I try to have is like to help people reduce their level of stress. I mean, I also have a story of a person who was very stressful, and a colleague said, hey, Pascal, you do this professional coaching. Would you like to have the session with that leader? It was a leader we were working with. And then I had a few sessions with that person. And then at the end, challenging situations with other leaders in his work environment. And then we were discussing of those problems and finding ways how he could be more self-confident and tackle them. And then at the end, he was like much more, happier, and the situations did not cause so much stress. So that was also a good story. So yeah, it's hard to say. For me, I would say that I cannot say.
Well, thank you anyway for sharing. It was really nice as usual. We are again running out of time, unfortunately, but a big thanks to you, Regina and Pascal, for sharing about burnout today and giving us a lot of new inputs and things to think about and look around for in the organizations. Also, a very big thank you to everyone in the chat who has been active, commenting and following us, and also for all your good questions. The recording is going to be out in I would say latest on Friday, so stay tuned also for that. You can sign up to our newsletter as you see here, and you'll get everything directly to your inbox, so you don't need to search online for stuff. But also follow us on social media and other places. As Emily mentioned in the chat today, this was the last webinar for this year. So we also want to wish you all a happy Christmas, whoever is celebrating, and happy New Year. And we will be back again next year with new topics, so stay tuned. Also, the best way to do that is through the newsletter or social media. So thanks for today, and see you next time.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you also from our side, and yeah, take care.
Bye.